The first time I noticed her, it felt like something out of a quiet movie scene. Every night after work, I walked the same path home. Same street. Same dim streetlights. Same row of small houses with glowing windows. It was the kind of neighborhood where people mostly kept to themselves. But one window always caught my attention. Inside that window, there was a woman who sat alone every single night. She never moved much. Never spoke to anyone. She just sat in a chair near the window with a soft yellow lamp glowing behind her. And every night, I wondered the same thing. Why was she always alone? But one night, something happened that changed everything. Because for the first time, she looked back at me. Before we continue this story, take a moment to support the channel. If you enjoy emotional storytelling like this, please like the video, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support helps your channel name bring more inspiring stories about kindness and humanity to people around the world. Now let's continue. My name is Daniel, and I worked late shifts at a small printing shop downtown. Most nights I didn't get off work until after 10 p.m. By the time I started my walk home, the streets were quiet and peaceful. At first, I barely noticed that house. But over time, that window became part of my routine. The house sat on the corner of Maple Street. It wasn't fancy. Just an old two-story home with faded white paint and a small porch. But the front window always had the same warm light shining through the curtains. And every night, the same woman sat there. She looked to be in her late 30s or early 40s. Blonde hair that fell loosely over her shoulders. A white shirt or robe most nights. Her posture was calm but distant, like someone lost in deep thought. Sometimes she held a mug. Sometimes a book. But most of the time, she just stared quietly into the night. I never meant to stare. But something about her presence felt heavy. Like there was a story behind those quiet moments. Weeks passed. Then months. And still, every night, she was there. I began to slow down when I walked past the house. Not enough to be obvious, but enough to glance at the window. Part of me felt strange doing it. Like I was intruding on someone's private moment. But another part of me felt worried. Because loneliness has a look to it. And I recognized it. You see, 3 years earlier, my wife had passed away from cancer. For months after that, I barely spoke to anyone. I sat in my own apartment most nights staring at old photos and wondering how life could suddenly become so quiet. So when I saw that woman sitting there every night, I saw a familiar silence. One night, during a cold winter evening, I noticed something different. The light in the room flickered slightly. She looked tired. Her shoulders were slumped forward, and her eyes looked red like she had been crying. That moment stuck with me all the way home. I couldn't stop thinking about it. The next evening, I did something small. Before leaving work, I stopped by a small coffee shop near the printing shop and bought 2 hot chocolates. I wasn't sure why. Maybe it was a strange idea. Maybe it was foolish. But kindness doesn't always start with certainty. Sometimes it starts with a small feeling you can't ignore. When I reached the house that night, I hesitated. My heart was beating fast. What if she thought I was weird? What if she got scared? But then I remembered something my wife used to say. Sometimes people don't need big gestures. Sometimes they just need to know someone noticed. So I walked up the short path to the porch. I placed 1 hot chocolate gently on the step with a small note. The note simply said, "Cold nights are easier with something warm. Take care." I knocked once, then quickly walked away. My heart pounded the entire way home. The next night, I almost felt embarrassed walking down the same street again. But when I reached the house, the hot chocolate cup was gone. And on the window, there was a small sticky note. It simply said, "Thank you." I smiled. It was the first time I had ever seen something written in that window. The next evening, I left another hot drink. This time, when I returned the following night, there was another note. "Rough week. Your kindness helped more than you know." Days turned into weeks. Our strange little routine continued. Sometimes I left tea. Sometimes a small pastry. And every time, there would be a note waiting the next day. We never spoke. But somehow, we were communicating. Her notes slowly became longer. She wrote about difficult days. About feeling stuck. About how quiet the house had become since her divorce 2 years earlier. She said the nights were the hardest. I wrote back sometimes too. Not long messages. Just small words of encouragement. Simple reminders that someone cared. Then one night, everything changed. It was early spring. The air was warmer, and flowers were beginning to bloom along the sidewalks. I walked past the house like usual. But this time, she wasn't sitting in the chair. Instead, she was standing by the window. And when I looked up, she looked directly at me. For the first time in nearly 6 months, our eyes met. She opened the front door. For a moment, neither of us said anything. Then she smiled softly. "You're the hot chocolate guy," she said. I laughed nervously. "I guess I am." She stepped onto the porch. "I'm Emily," she said. "Daniel," I replied. There was an awkward pause. Then she said something that I will never forget. "You have no idea how much those little notes meant to me." She explained that when her marriage ended, she felt like her life had completely collapsed. Friends slowly stopped calling. Family lived far away. And the nights felt endless. But then one random evening, someone left a hot chocolate and a note. "That was the first time in months I felt like the world hadn't forgotten me," she said. Her voice trembled slightly. We talked for nearly an hour that night. About life. About loss. About loneliness. And about how strange it was that two people could live just a few blocks apart and never know each other's stories. Over the following weeks, something beautiful began to happen. Instead of sitting alone at the window, Emily started taking evening walks. Sometimes we walked together. Sometimes we just talked on the porch. The quiet house slowly felt less lonely. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, she looked at me and said, "You know, kindness is strange." "How so?" I asked. She smiled. "Because you probably thought you were just leaving drinks on a porch. But to me, it felt like someone opened a window in a very dark room." Her words stayed with me. Because kindness often works like that. The smallest gesture can become the brightest light in someone's darkest moment. Months later, the house on Maple Street looked different. The porch had flowers now. The window curtains were open. And most nights, the light inside wasn't shining on someone sitting alone anymore. Instead, two people were sitting there talking and laughing. Life doesn't always need grand miracles to change. Sometimes, all it takes is noticing someone. Sometimes, all it takes is a small act of kindness. And sometimes, all it takes is the courage to leave a hot chocolate on a stranger's porch. So if this story touched your heart, remember this. You never know who might be silently struggling just a few steps away. Your kindness might be the very thing that reminds them they're not alone. And if you believe the world needs more kindness, share this story with someone who could use a little hope today. Because one small act can change a life. Red Heart.